Good morning, everyone. So today I'm going to talk about chapters 17, 18, and 19. I just wanted you to see Henry sitting there with me while I make these videos. Okay, so what you need to do then is read chapters 17, 18, and 19. It's pages 79 to 92, and then watch the video. Okay, so the first short answer response you're going to be writing this week has to do with Jerry Spinelli's depiction of the Warsaw Ghetto and the living conditions. And so let me just begin with some facts. So there were squalid living conditions. This was a residential area, and as many as 460,000 Jews were imprisoned in an area that was about 1.3 square miles. An average of 9 people shared a room in an apartment. So that would be 7 to 9 people in a living room, 7 to 9 people in a bedroom, 7 to 9 people in another area. Sometimes people even slept in the hallways and in the doorways and in bathrooms. So very crowded conditions. There was a 9-foot wall, red brick wall, that was built around the ghetto. It was topped with barbed wire and broken glass. There was mass starvation, disease like typhus, violence, of course, great poverty, and 100,000 people died from those kinds of diseases. From the ghetto, Jews were then sent to extermination camps. People tended to survive on about 180 calories a day, which is not even the caloric intake of a bag of pretzels or a bag of potato chips. Medicine and food was smuggled into the Warsaw Ghetto. Children, we know, I've talked to you about this before, children were mainly responsible for smuggling. They went through holes in the brick wall and through underground passageways. And actually, if you ever get a chance to go to Warsaw and go to the district that was the Warsaw Ghetto, you can go through some of the passageways. I've done that in other countries where I've taken sort of a tour, if you will, of passageways. And also, many people hid in the gutter system, in the sewer system in Warsaw, which was very intricate. People hid there, and then sometimes they would come up through the manholes inside the ghetto and out of the ghetto in order to get food and supplies. Irina Sendler and other young people worked as resistance workers. Irina Sendler was actually a Polish Catholic social worker. Social worker is kind of like a guidance counselor. And during 1942 and 1943, she and her resistance group called Zagota, they smuggled Jewish babies and children out of the ghetto and placed them in families of Christian Polish people. Okay, so chapter 17 is then about the unfolding of the squalid conditions in the ghetto, and we first meet these people called Finches. And Finches are Jewish people who would tattletale on Jews, who was smuggling, who had arms, who had a radio, things like that. You might ask yourself, why would a person take the role of a Finch? Maybe the Gestapo, the Nazi police, were providing them with some kind of incentive, food, medicine, a work permit. Okay, and then the other important part on page 80 is about Yuri, that Yuri, he kind of disappears for periods of time. And he's Jewish, and he's trying to pass himself off as someone else. So the question is really, where is he and what is he up to? Is he part of the resistance? We don't really know. He's older than Misha. He's kind of a leader type. So we have to see what happens with him. Then one day the Gestapo come into the stable where Misha and all the other smugglers are sleeping, and they kick them out and they march them into the ghetto where kind of a different parade at this point. They go into the ghetto. There are bystanders standing around, calling them names, taunting them, calling them filthy Jews and little snots and things like that. And then once he gets into the ghetto, he goes over to Janina's house on Niska Street. And that's where he learns that her parents have work permits. The father is working in some kind of factory, and the mother is sewing uniforms for jackboot soldiers. So if you were able to work, the Nazis would give you work. It was always in service to the Nazis. It's not like they were earning money or anything like that. It was a way of staying alive. Misha and Janina then go outside, and Janina, on page 82, she makes a comment about she's not wearing her armband because nobody cares about little kids, and they live in the ghetto now, and they're safe. So this is an illusion of safety, because in truth, the Nazis killed Jewish children, killed babies, killed Jewish children, went after them, and there was no safety in the ghetto. It was simply a waiting place for the Jews to die, and they were going to starve them, and that was their intent. You can see also on page 82, there's a fox fur lady living there. So in the ghetto, there were also, wealthy Jewish people. And those people went into the ghetto with their furs and their diamonds and their jewelry, thinking that they could use these items to bribe guards. And maybe they were able to do that, probably for a period of time. But that is all illusory. It's an illusion. It's something that doesn't really exist. Okay. And then at some other point on page 83, this is where Misha introduces Janina to Olek, and he describes her as his sister. This is very, very important because this is the beginning of a change in his identity. I mean, he more or less moves away from the smugglers, and he starts to identify himself with the Milgram family. And this really speaks to his need to be part of a family. It speaks to our need to be part of a family unit, to be part of a community. Okay, so Janina, on the other hand, says, "Why do you keep calling me your sister?" She doesn't understand that because she's always been part of a family. And then on page 84, he looks at these other children. He calls them unlucky orphans, and they're unlucky because they didn't live in Dr. Korshak's orphanage, and he still identifies himself as an unlucky orphan. All right, chapter 18. It's the middle of winter. And Misha asks Yuri, where he's been and what he's doing, and Yuri tells him, "Don't ask." And that's a way of protecting him, really. He doesn't want him to know what he's up to. So we have to wonder, what is he up to? What is he doing? Okay, another important aspect of the living conditions here has to do with, sadly, the dead bodies of children. They would just Unfortunately, you would find them all over the streets, on the sidewalk, in the middle of the street, pretty much everywhere. And at night, people would come with a wagon and take these dead bodies and bring them to a place where they would either be buried in a mass grave or they would be burned. And many of these people died from starvation and typhus and other diseases. Okay, chapter 19. This is where, okay, so the boys are sleeping in rubble. They don't have a blanket. They sleep together like a bunch of huddled kittens. That's how Spinelli describes them. And they have a conversation about two important things. One is this idea of, mothers, that mothers don't exist. And this is Ferdy, and Ferdy is very cynical, very bitter, very fearful, angry, and he doesn't believe that there are mothers. And so they have this discussion about mothers, that orphans don't have mothers, and that they're existing almost like feral animals. Now, feral animals are animals that live outdoors, and they live in packs. Like sometimes you see a mother cat will have kittens, and they're born outside in a backyard or under a porch, that sort of thing. And so mothers and oranges are the subject of a debate here. Again, we're introduced to the idea of these flops. Flops were the ghetto police, and they were Jews. They didn't wear an armband. They had no identification papers, no records, but they told on the on the on the Jews and the gypsies and the people in the ghetto, and they were traitors. So again, the question looms: why would someone become a Finch? Why would someone become a flop? Okay, people are starving at this point, and then it was intentional. And Yuri sometimes appears, and he brings them a stick of gum or a jar of molasses, a turnip, a potato, something like that. These really, really small items. So you can see food is becoming more and more scarce. And horses are beginning to disappear. People are selling things. They're trying to trade items in order to stay alive. And then a particularly important scene is on page 90 and 91 when Misha snatches two rats from what he called the outdoor market. And he ate one of the rats, and he took the other to Janina's house. And he hands it to Uncle Shepsel when he walks in, and Janina says, "Oh no, it's a squirrel, it's a squirrel." And she wants to save it for her parents. And Uncle Shepsel spits. He takes a bite of it, and then he spits on the floor and says, "I'm not going to eat that." And Janina keeps saying, "Oh no, it's a rat. It's a squirrel. It's a squirrel." And then at some point, Uncle Shepsel again takes the rat from her, and they start to pull the rat apart. And they're growling and grunting at each other. And Uncle Shepsel starts to eat his half of the rat. Again, this is his malevolence, his fear. People are starving to death. And look at his response. And then Janina's mother comes back from her job. And Janina says, "Look, Mama, look, Misha brought us some food." And she shows the mother this rat. And Mr. Milgram looks at it and he says, "No, not yet," meaning it hasn't come to that yet. And Mrs. Milgram goes to the mattress, puts her body against the wall, and Mr. Milgram goes over there with her to comfort her. And then and she throws the rat on the floor, and it picks up the dust and the grime, and who knows what else is on the floor. And then you see Uncle Shepsel brushing off the dirt from the rat, and then he eats it. The next day, Misha is walking along the wall, and this is where he starts to spot holes in the wall and places where a skinny little boy could probably shimmy himself through the hole in the wall and go to the other side. And even though the wall was guarded by finches and flops and jackboot soldiers, and if you were caught going through the wall, you would be shot immediately. You couldn't climb over the wall because it had barbed wire and it had broken glass at the top, and you would be seen. But if there was a break in the walls, they would go through it. And that's the end of chapters 17, 18, and 19. Okay, so I hope that you were able to pick up some important details that you'll be able to use in your short answer response. Okay, have a good day, everyone.